HarperCollins presents The Boy from Baghdad, My Journey from Waziriyah to Westminster by Nadhim Zahawi. Read by Nadhim Zahawi. To my beautiful wife Lana, a woman was the first with whom I fell in love and desired to live with and talk to. It is she who was the first one whom I desired to be next to and help. A woman is the remedy of youth, the beauty of nature, the splendor of life, the garment of pure spring and its purple smiling flowers, and is the poetry which makes men sing. Jamil Sidqi al-Zahawi. Preface. Even before it started, the evening of the 1st of February 2011 looked set to be a pretty important one. I'd spent the previous decade as the chief executive of YouGov, and had handed over my keys to the building in order to become a Member of Parliament for Stratford-on-Avon in the 2010 election. FaceTime with the Prime Minister was a rarity for any new backbencher, but after a mix-up with his wife's diary, David Cameron had found himself stuck at home on babysitting duty one night and decided to use the time to get to know a few of the new recruits. I must have done something right because at 4 p.m. that day, I got a call to say I was one of them. I put on my best suit and prepared to sell myself to my new boss. I'd spent 15 odd years waiting to become a Member of Parliament, but had never really imagined how heavily my earliest steps might influence later ones. I was not to know that less than 10 months in, I'd be faced with the first real test of my moral compass, or that the conversation that night would ensure I stayed pinned to the backbenches for the next 7 years. Dinner at the Downing Street flat was the kind where you ate in the kitchen and brought your own wine, but even so, the PM was never wholly off the clock. As we took our places at the table, he made advance apologies for a call he'd have to take from Egypt's then-President Mubarak. An hour in, and he excused himself, as predicted, returning a while later, a lot more flustered than when he'd left us. "You look a bit flushed, Prime Minister," I ventured. "What happened?" The answer was an explosive conversation with an enraged dictator whose country was under siege from citizens revolting against 30 years of political oppression. In response to the uprising, the Americans had sent an envoy to talk to Mubarak. Mubarak had assured the envoy that he'd not only announce reforms, but that he wouldn't contest the election results in the autumn either. It was good news all round. It wasn't until the envoy was about to board a plane back to the United States that Mubarak revealed the changes he'd promised wouldn't be coming until September. Cairo was burning. By September, there'd be nothing left to reform. His concessions weren't going to appease anyone. In the hours leading up to our dinner, it was agreed that the British Prime Minister would pick up the baton and call Mubarak himself to squeeze from both sides, hence the interruption to our meal that night. With diplomatic niceties out of the way, the PM pressed Mubarak to reform immediately, not kick the can down the road and hope the problem would go away. His suggestion was met with a sufficiently long silence for Cameron to think the line had been cut, which made Mubarak's response even more disarming when it did come. "Prime Minister," he bawled loud enough for Dave to have to hold the phone away from his ear. "You don't understand. Your people are good people. These people are terrible people." At least, that explained the colour of the PM's face when he returned to the table. A week or so later, and Mubarak was gone, but my dinner that evening served as a reminder that when your values are challenged, you have to be ready to stand up for what you believe in, no matter how loud or intimidating the voice of your opponent. It was a lesson that would stand me in good stead, and much sooner than I might have expected. As we sat around Dave's big kitchen table, the conversation inevitably turned to his forthcoming legislative programme. While I may have been a novice MP, I was already 43 years old, with more than
Sample complete. Ready to continue?